Easy for ordinary people to abandon their state, but lawmakers would never do that willingly, for they are their state's embedded first beneficiaries. It is easy for a new follower of a religion to disenfranchise, but not for priests and ministers, for they are the embedded first beneficiaries of their religion. A religious believer who has wallowed in their religion all their life will not abandon it easily because their confidence would collapse. They would be at a loss for what to do, and they would need to find a new track to follow. It might be simple for an ordinary political party member to abandon their party, but no party leader would ever abandon theirs, for once doing so, they would have nothing to play and could not command or control others. Common people look forward to the great unity, to lead lives of public ownership when the world will be one united family. Although it might seem easier for them to abandon private ownership, those who own property, especially those very wealthy people, will not abandon private ownership, for if everyone is really equal, how could they lead superior lives? How could they show off their wealth? How could they swagger before others, or make others admire them? It is the same with married couples. The ones who are more stifled, abused, bounded, and exploited will hate their family lives, while the ones who benefit more from their marriages and family lives will hardly want to abandon them. Human nature includes the desire to control others and to have more and more people under their control. However, not all people can be kings, religious leaders, political party leaders, or bosses of companies. For the vast majority of people, the desire for control will be played out, realized, and fulfilled in their families. Men want to control their wives. Women want to control their husbands. Both want to exercise parental control over their children, and children are genetically programmed to get as much from their parents as they can. So, families are the first battlefield of life where great and small wars play out daily. Many couples show happy harmony to the public, but are unwilling to complain about their bitterness. In fact, you will always suffer from the pain that comes along with possessing anything. The more you possess, the more pain you will suffer. In this world, it is the kings, presidents, religious leaders, political party bosses, and wealthy capitalists who endure the most pain. It is they who cannot even lead peaceful lives day or night who are the most deserving of pity. Abandonment is an achievement. Abandonment is a great magic weapon to obtain mental and spiritual growth and is the best way to sublimate oneself and achieve a bright future. The core teachings of Jesus Christ and Buddha Sakyamuni dwell in it. The freedom and happiness of life and the secrets leading to the realm of heaven dwell in it too. Looking for your own Garden of Eden. Xiefeng. Even tigers may be teased by dogs when they leave the remote mountains and come to lush and flat areas. Dragons can be duped by shrimp when they are in shallow water. Camels along the coast are harder to ride than donkeys, and domestic captive phoenixes are worse off than chickens. The tiger is the king of the mountains, but tigers can only give play to their power and prestige in the mountains. Once they come down to the plains, a pack of wild dogs will dare to tease them. Dragon are lords of the abyss, but dragons can only summon wind and call for rain in the abyss. If they fall into shallow depressions or ponds, the little shrimp and small fish can dupe them. Camels can only demonstrate their most valuable qualities in deserts, but if one lives along the coast, it would be less useful than a donkey. Phoenixes can roar out songs and show their magnificence in the quiet of plane trees, but if they are unfortunate enough to be kept in cages with feathers falling and listless in form and spirit, then they are worse than chickens. These phenomena suggest such a truth, that all kinds of life can only give full play to themselves and demonstrate their most precious qualities and values when they live in the environments suited to their natures. If they are unfortunate to live in an environment not suited to their own characteristics, not only can they not play out their strengths, but they might even be teased and duped by other creatures around them. I call the environment which best suits one's survival their Garden of Eden. Everyone has their own Garden of Eden, and it is only inside of it that they will live out their elegant demeanor. If you are away from your Garden of Eden, you will be frustrated and have difficult times and even be regarded as a waste or good for nothing by others around you. The white swan was unfortunate to live within flocks of chickens and ducks in the beginning, being laughed at and mocked by them, and was ridiculed as the ugly duckling. The genius painter, Vincent van Gogh, was spiritually enlightened, but had the misfortune to be living in a secular society, so he was unappreciated and taken advantage of all throughout his life and eventually died in poverty and with depression. Zhang Zia, The founding minister of the Zhou dynasty went to do business, but ended up with losses rather than profits. Chen Jingrun, who took the crown pearl of the Goldbach conjecture, went to the market to buy vegetables and was ridiculed as being a bit silly. One who is kind should not be a commander. If you are kind and soft, then you should never lead an army into battle, for you would never become a general. One who is righteous should not engage in trade. If you have a strong sense of justice and are ready to help the weak, then you should never go into business, for you would never become wealthy. One who is honest should not enter into politics. If you like seeking out the truth from facts and adhering to the truth, then you should never enter politics, for you would never become a senior official. One who has a loving heart should not marry. If you have a loving heart, then you should never marry, for your love would be tied up and unable to shine with brilliance. One who has a noble soul should not mingle in the secular world. If you have a graceful heart, then you should never mingle in the secular world, for you would be regarded as silly and your beauty would go unappreciated. One who is unsophisticated should not engage in writing. If you are honest and simple, then you should never engage in writing, for your articles would not possess literary elegance and would likely invite scorn and ridicule. One of integrity should not engage in the art of war. If you advocate honesty and hate cheating, then you should never go into a war to confront others, for the art of war is full of tricks. Confronting others, whether civil or military, is all about tactics and tricks, so you would be doomed to lose. If you want to make your life happy, joyful, free, and blessed, if you want to play to your strengths and expertise, if you want to stand out and rank high, and if you want to climb to the highest realm of life and life, then you must find your own Garden of Eden. If you come from the 1,000-year world or the 10,000-year world of heaven, then you must not envy the world's high positions and great wealth, and not waste your time trying to get your ideal life from the mortal world, because its soil is not suitable for you to grow in, bloom, and bear fruit. Your Garden of Eden is in heaven, not in the mortal world. Seek out those people who appreciate you, are nice to you, and who like you, but do not try to change anyone, especially those whose ideas and views are always against yours. A leopard cannot change its spots. One cannot change one's essential nature. To those people who have different frequencies of mind and consciousness, no matter how impressively you sing their praises, how you comfort them, how you attempt to persuade them, they will never appreciate your feelings or understand your intentions. Even if you open your heart to them, they will still be indifferent and persist in their old ways. When you find your Garden of Eden, you should cherish it. Never take for granted that you can do anything and give up your Garden of Eden. There was a division commander who battled like a fish in water and was very capable when he was in the army, but he grew proud and conceited and thought he would be capable in any environment. So he left the army and entered into civil administration. There, he expected to play a great role, yet after years of rushing about, he suffered setbacks everywhere and could not achieve anything. The hero in the army became good for nothing during peacetime. Why? Because he had left his own Garden of Eden. Never assume that cacti can grow everywhere or can please everyone. That which comes easiest is the most valuable. However, that which comes easiest is the mostly likely to be ignored and undervalued. The greatest creator has given each of us a chance to access their Garden of Eden, but many of us do not pay due attention and do not value and understand their nature as much. Many people get it and then lose it. It is easy to lose than gain. What a pity. Look for your own Garden of Eden. I hope that everyone will find their own Garden of Eden. Infants who never grow up. Xiefeng. Everyone has a natural attachment to their mother, and no one wants to leave her swaddling cloth. One can drink their mother's milk and feel safe in her arms, so one would ever want to leave their mother's side. However, those who never leave their mothers will never grow up. So if you are to grow up, you must do so. Of course, I do not mean to leave her physically, but rather to leave her spiritually and psychologically, or you will never grow into maturity. Leaving one's mother is painful, but to not do it is to remain an infant who never grows up. Leaving the mother takes these 4 steps. Cutting the umbilical cord. This step is done right after we leave our mother's body. Weaning. This step is forcefully done when we transition from being babies to becoming children. Cutting loose from home. This step usually happens when we marry. cutting the emotional attachment. This step is gradual and melts away as our mothers leave the mortal world. This is as natural a process as it is an uncontrollable one, and it describes our growth process. This is not being heartless, it is simply our journey of life. Many people have left their mothers in form, but not in essence. Their mother complex is transformed and demonstrated in other ways. When we were young, we thought that we could not survive without our mothers, and when we grew up, we felt that we could not endure without our states. People all over the world defend their states. National defense is designed to protect the mother state, and so military expenditures on national defense worldwide is alarming. This is an unnecessary waste. If people around the world had no states, civilization could ascend to a much higher level, but people are attached to their mother states, and no one wants to wean. The ideal of the absence of the state is not a fantasy, and if everyone were to become Chanyuan celestials, then states would naturally disappear and they would become historical memories. The more powerful and intrusive that states become, the more contradictions and conflicts that they inflict upon their people, the heavier that the burdens they place upon them always become. Therefore, the absence of the state is the ideal dream of the sages and saints of mankind. The role of religion is in fact the mother's role. The feelings of religious believers to their own religions are actually the subconscious reflections of infants' attachments to their mothers. Pledging to protect their mother is an inherent nature contained within every person. The fanaticism of religious believers is the perfect manifestation of this inherent nature. The greatest creator is not in religion, and this is understood by every follower, so why do they still maintain their religions? Because their followers are unwilling to wean. Maintaining religions is actually a kind of natural complex of maintaining their mothers to infants who have never grown up. As long as we take a rational analysis, we can see that throughout history, much misery and many disasters have been the outgrowths of religions. Religions confused people's minds, paralyzed their instincts, created barriers and shackles to the full display of human nature, and diverted people from the great way and led them astray. If religions are everywhere, then our minds can never be at peace, and disputes will continue. Therefore, the absence of religion is the desired dream of the sages and saints of mankind. Political parties are also umbrellas playing the role of the mother. We have a saying, "back to the arms of the party," which is the best footnote to the meaning of political parties. The reason that people join political parties is to be embraced by others so they can enjoy a steady flow of milk and a sense of safety. Claiming to be serving the people and the nation is but a cover. There are tens of thousands of political parties of various sizes worldwide, but their existence is a sign that people are still savage and ignorant. The power struggles between political parties have always flashed with knives and swords for life and death. Superficially, it is for democracy, but actually it is to inflate their mother complexes. To reach substantive purposes, they resort to various conspiracies in both light and shadow, adding endless suffering and problems to society. So, the absence of all political parties everywhere is the noble ideal of people climbing to the highest realm of life. The other organization, acting in the mother's role, is the family. It is said that the family is the cell of society, but these cells are inherently cancerous and everyone's life troubles and misfortunes stem mainly from them. It is the bane of selfishness, greed, and infinite lust. And if they are not destroyed, the vicious cycles that people endure will never end. Why do people want families? Because people need to get their milk and their sense of security from them. People are reluctant to grow up, and they all hope to cling to their mother's arms forever. States, religions, political parties, and families take on the roles of mothers, and as long as we still cling to them, we can only be described as infants who have never grown up. New era consciousness requires people to step out of infancy because those who cannot think outside the infant's crib have no road to heaven. Before the birth of Life Genuine, the existence of states, religions, political parties, and families was justified, but now their presence is irrational. Previously, we thought that those who sacrificed for their states, religions, political parties, and brought honors to their ancestors were great and respectable. Now, we know they are pathetic and are infants who have never grown up. It was we who sold our own liberty. Xiefeng. Liberty is supreme and priceless. and it is the feature of life in heaven and shows the level of a life. The more liberty, the more heavenly. The less the liberty, the more hellish. Liberty, love. For my love I will sacrifice life. Thereto I need. For liberty I will sacrifice my love. Edify Sandor. Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry. Liberty is the greatest wealth in life. Losing it is losing life. Gaining it is gaining life. So, what is liberty? Liberty is the infinite power of a life to use its eyes, ears, nose, body, mind, and tongue while acting with desire but never overstepping it. Seeing what you want is the liberty of your eyes. Hearing what you want is the liberty of your ears. Going where you want and using your hands and feet as you want is the liberty of your body. Saying and thinking what you want is the liberty of your mind, namely the liberty of your spirit and soul. The liberty of your eyes, ears, body, and mind form the liberty of your life. Those who have eyes but are forbidden to see, have ears but are forbidden to hear, have a mouth but are forbidden to speak, have feet but are forbidden to walk, have hands but are forbidden to act, and who want to lead their own lives but are banned from doing so have lives with no liberty. We will not discuss the liberty of gods, Buddha, celestials, saints, devils, monsters, or even plants and animals. We will only talk about that of humans. People have very little liberty. In other words, they rarely keep it in full. Why do we not have liberty? Because we sell it. How do we sell it? It is mainly sold through three channels or aspects. Culture. People sell themselves to traditional cultures. They accept traditional cultural values, such as the belief that people should marry when they grow up, but when they step into marriage, they sell their own liberty. Traditional culture says, never travel far from the company of parents. Then the body has no liberty. Traditional culture says, love your nation and love your people. Come on. They have sold their liberty to their own nation and culture, and so on. Morality. They sell their liberty to their own values and beliefs. Party loyalists and religionists are stark examples. So-called proponents of liberty are actually kidnapped by their morality and sell their liberty to morality. If they sell their liberty to the belief in evolution, then they will not accept the value of creationism. As a result, the survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle, and winners are kings while losers are gangsters becomes their creed of life. It will be hard to avoid the fighting to death, and liberty can't be found anywhere. They need to remember that anyone without liberty is unable to offer it to others, just as the poor cannot bring wealth to others and ugly people cannot bring beauty to others. Mechanism. As long as there are constitutions, laws, regulations, doctrines, disciplines, contracts, and the like which restrict and bind them, people will sell their liberty to that which they set for themselves. Their state is a mechanism. They believe in their state, and they sell their liberty to their country. Marriage families are mechanisms, and as long as they consciously enter into marriage families, it is no doubt that people will sell their own liberty to the marriage family. A contract is a mechanism. When a contract is signed, liberty is sold to the contract. When we do not feel free today, we have to rethink that we have no liberty because we sold it. For that, it is as normal that we have no liberty as if we sell our house and then have nowhere to sleep. That is all our fault, and we have no excuse to complain to others. In addition to the three main channels to sell liberty listed above, we also have the following list of small channels through which it is sold. These include jealousy, blaming, comparing, fighting, killing, worry, fear, desire, money, power, fame, lust, and so on. As long as we are infected with any of these negative emotions or inner anxieties, or indulge in any desires, our liberty will be restricted or even lost. For example, if we fear something that restricts our liberty, then we sell our liberty to fear. When a country perpetrates a national terror policy and makes people live in fear from morning till night, then the people's liberty will be deprived completely, and they will have to live a life more like that of a dog than a human. Tracing back to the source, the country might not be bad, but the people have sold their liberty to fear. As more and more citizens of a country become willing to sell their liberty to fear, This terror policy becomes the perfect way for the state to control its people. The bondage of the individual is self-inflicted, and the slavery of all is caused by the collective. If one wants to enjoy liberty from such an environment, there is only one thing to do: escape. Where to go? To a free place. If there is no free place on the earth, escape to heaven. Strategic life. Xiefeng. Using the best building plan, employing the most advanced machinery, mobilizing the best construction workers, and applying the highest quality materials, such as steel and concrete tiles, to build a skyscraper on sand, what will happen? The result will be a crushing failure. Why? Because there was a strategic error. You cannot build a high-rise building on sand, and even if you could and did, a single breeze would collapse it. If it is strategically wrong, any tactical success is equal to zero. As in the example above, the building plan, the advanced machinery, the excellent construction workers, the high-quality materials, and other tactical successes will ultimately have zero value because of the strategic mistake. Strategies are overall planning and designs. Tactics are specific measures to achieve them. If the strategy is wrong, then even the best tactics are ultimately hopeless efforts. Sun Tzu's The Art of War includes strategies and tactics. Life also includes both. The so-called strategic life must grasp and operate life from the macro perspective, or life must first have the right ideal with the right directions and goals. Otherwise, no matter how diligent you are, how hard you try in your lifetime, you will end up fruitless. I once drilled a well in a remote village in the Binga area of Matabeleland in the North Province of Zimbabwe. First, I mobilized all the villagers and built nearly 10 kilometers of road, and we cut down the trees that blocked the vehicles along both sides of the road. Then trucks loaded with the drill and other materials and workers entered the construction site in a formidable array. Hundreds of villagers cheered like thunder and supported us with great enthusiasm. After 2 days of drilling down to a depth of 90 meters, not a single drop of water had been found. The drilling failed. After having taken so much labor and having invested so much money, the result in the end was zero. Why was that? The reason lies not in tactics, but in strategy. In other words, the drilling point designated by the geologic and hydrographic staff was dry. In a spot with no water, no matter how many human and financial resources you invest, or how excellent the drilling experts you have mobilized are, you will never drill out water. While taking a course in marketing, an American professor told us the story of an American shoe factory that wanted to set up a branch in Africa. So they sent 2 market researchers to Africa to make a survey of the shoe market. One researcher came back and reported pessimistically that there was no market for shoes in Africa because African people did not wear shoes. Another researcher came back and reported optimistically that a huge market for shoes existed in Africa because none of the African people were wearing shoes. In this situation, what should the American shoe factory have done? This leads to the strategic issue. If the strategy is correct, then there will eventually be huge profits. But if the strategy is wrong, it will drag the shoe factory down. Most African women do not wear socks, and if someone were to import a container of socks to sell in Africa, he or she would be making a strategic mistake. Recently, I found a pinch of black slags on the white floor tiles in my bathroom. The situation remained the same the next day, even though the gardener cleaned it every day. Today, I bent down and took a closer look. It turned out that dozens of tiny ants were making nests along the edge of the floor tiles against the wall. I felt very sad about this because those ants had made a strategic mistake. The bathroom is very clean, and having a food source would be a big problem. Would it not have been better if the nest had been built in the lawn or under the tree roots in the garden? It might be a good idea to build a gem processing factory in Siberia, Russia, but building a soy sauce factory would be a strategic mistake. Now let us come back to the strategic issues of life. The first strategic issue of life is to give play to your strengths and to do the things that you want to do. If a profession is not right for you, or if it does not make you feel comfortable, then do not force yourself to do it. You would be better off staying idle than forcing yourself to do it because this is a strategic issue. Once you make a strategic mistake, your whole life will be trapped into building castles on sand. Had the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Mother Teresa, not helped the helpless and lonely people, but rather studied radioactive elements like Marie Curie, she might not have accomplished anything at all. Likewise, If Chen Jingrun, who took the math crown pearl by solving the Goldbach conjecture, had been sent to be the manage the marketing department of an HR firm, it could have ended up in a complete mess. If a person is tone deaf, but wants to learn music or wants to be a singer, then they would be making a strategic mistake of life. I have a distant uncle. He became an apprentice to a carpenter at an early age. 3 years later, he could not even make a chair without help from his master. That is to say, my distant uncle had made a strategic mistake of life. He was not born with the material to be a carpenter. The second strategic issue of life is to comply with time. Sowing in spring, harvesting season in autumn is correct. If you want to act at times inverse of nature, you will be punished by the Tao of heaven. Those who suit their actions to the times are wise. Yiwu people of Zhejiang province, China are called the Jews of China because they have a shrewd business acumen. However, during the Cultural Revolution, they were often criticized as models of walking on the capitalist road, so their shrewd ability could not be played out. I knew a very talented man who remains in prison after more than 10 years because he was involved in a democracy movement. This was not a bad thing and it was totally above board. So why is he in prison? Because what he did was ill-timed. In other words, he wanted to pick and eat his watermelon before it was ripe, and he made a strategic mistake. The third strategic issue of life is to always place yourself in the right position and not to overstep. If it is your duty, you make sure to be conscientious and earnest to do it well, and never to try to shirk your responsibility. But if it is not within the scope of your duties, keep your mouth shut, do not gossip, and pay no attention, even if the sky falls. What responsibilities do you have as to whether the country rises or falls? You have a responsibility to be a good citizen. According to the teachings of Jesus Christ, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? I have several colleagues who often criticize the decisions of the leadership as well as the work and behavior of other colleagues. Ultimately, they were a nuisance and could not play out their strengths, and so ended up complaining but unfulfilled. An assistant general manager was very talented and could have had broad future prospects, but because he was too critical of the decisions of the general manager, he was soon dismissed. That is to say, a person, no matter how capable they are, must be sure to place themselves in the right position. Every man should confine himself to his own duties, otherwise, it is overstepping. What is the biggest strategic issue in life? Jesus tells us clearly, "For what a man profited, if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" That is to say, the greatest strategic issue of life is the issue of the soul. From novels, history, and reality, we learn that many people have lost their souls for money and wealth, many have forfeited their souls for power, and many have lost their souls for fame and lust. These are all strategic mistakes of life. Similarly, many people have forfeited their souls for their families, their ethnic groups, their religious or political parties, or for their countries. These people have also made strategic mistakes of life. Everything is but a game. Only the soul is real. The issue of the soul should always be kept in first place because everything revolves around it. In this way, once the key link is grasped, everything else falls into place. Now, everything is clear and everything else in life is to play the game. You have developed a mind which does not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and dharma. And the Tathagata comes. That is the life strategy of great wisdom and intelligence, chasing the sun and escaping the night. Xiefeng. It was 6 a.m. on Wednesday, August 19th. We flew west for 2.5 hours from Beijing Capital Airport, P, to Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport, BOM, in Mumbai, India, where the local time was also 6 a.m. We then continued to fly west for another 3.5 hours to Harare International Airport, HRE, in Zimbabwe, where the local time was still 6 a.m. We continued to fly for another 7 hours to New York City, where the local time was still 6 a.m. We continued to fly west for another 11 hours back to Beijing International Airport, where we found that the time was also 6 a.m., but it was Thursday, August 20th. We had flown for 24 hours, from 6 a.m. on Wednesday to 6 a.m. on Thursday, but the 24 hours we had gone through were all during the morning, never in the evening, and all the times we saw were 6 a.m. So where did the night go? You may think about where the night went. But the fact is that we are fully capable of leading our lives without nights and can even spin them with eternal mornings, middays, and afternoons. From this, we know the following truth. As long as we chase the light, we can escape the darkness. This is an indisputable fact, but is everything like this? Things can be very smooth when we actively seek sincerity, kindness, beauty, and love, but misfortune will befall us when we fail to actively pursue them, just as we would encounter the night if we did not remain on westbound jet planes. A girl who finds a sugar daddy may escape from poverty for a brief period of time, and a boy who follows an emperor may escape disaster. When our fathers want to punish us, but we coax them and make them happy in some way, their desire to punish us will diminish. The ship we were to have taken sank, but we took a patient with a serious disease to a hospital and missed the ship and also the disaster. Please try to understand this fact. If we chase the light, we can escape the darkness. If we pursue happiness, we can be free from misery and trouble. If we pursue the truth, we can avoid falsity. If we pursue beauty, we can escape ugliness. And if we pursue goodness, we will avoid evil. More importantly, if we pursue the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world, we will escape the mortal world. Nights exist, but they have nothing to do with us. The mortal world exists, but it has nothing to do with the people who live in heaven. And here is the fact. If we worship Buddha, then we will attain Buddhahood, and if we seek to be celestial beings, then we will become celestial beings. Those who remain single all their lives will avoid the afflictions that families cause. If we learn from the saints, we will avoid committing crimes, being hunted by the police, and being arrested. If we sit at home for self-improvement, we will miss the car accident. If we attend church or temple services, we will miss being assaulted, mugged, or robbed. If we do not fight in wars, we will avoid the threat of being killed on the battlefield. Chanyuan Celestials of Life Chanyuan go all out to pursue sincerity, kindness, beauty, love, and the highest realms of life and will escape the darkness, falsity, wickedness, ugliness, hate, and cheating, and escape from the mortal world and from hell. Misfortune and suffering will withdraw farther from us. We will have light when others are in darkness, will be in a land of idyllic beauty when others are being punished by nature, and will be enjoying the kingdom of heaven when others fall into abysses. We are delighted to cultivate ourselves every day and to revere and take the way of the greatest creator. Unconsciously, we avoid a lot of misery and devastation. As long as we hold on to our faith, we will be able to reach the shore of our ideals. Chase the light and escape the darkness. The three great treasures of life. Xiefeng. People accumulate and process three types of treasures of wealth during their lifetimes. They are defined as immaterial wealth. This is the physical material to sustain human bodies, represented by forms of money, such as currency, precious metals, jewelry, real estate, vehicles, food, household appliances, clothing, and any other physical properties. This includes those elements that enable consciousness, including wisdom and understanding, and all mental activities to remain healthy, free, uplifted, comfortable, and blessed through attributes such as knowledge, skills, experiences, family affection, friendship, love, religions, groups, states, reputations, positions, and so on. Soul wealth. This is the intangible energy and information that can make the quality of life elevate and the non-material structure of life evolve to the perfect system, such as the psychic energy of the greatest creator, the running program of Tao, the revelation of gods, the teachings of Buddha, the cultivation of celestial beings, inspiration, spiritual perception, and so on. The three great treasures above complement each other and are integral to each other. With no material wealth, we cannot have the foundation to make a living. We will either die or become beggars and parasites. Our bodies will not rest, our hearts shall not be at peace, and our undertakings will fail. We will be starving and impoverished, and so we must create and get material wealth by relying on our intelligence and hard work. However, those with only material wealth and no spiritual or soul wealth are lacking and tend to commit crime, suicide, and abuse life and nature. Without spiritual wealth, we would be a constantly moving animal who lives by instinct. The lack of ideological wealth would make us lonely, bored, and empty, and we could not reach a state of joy and blessing, and our mentality would be twisted and distorted, suppressed, hot-tempered, eccentric, and prone to go to extremes. However, those with only spiritual wealth but with no material or soul wealth are lacking, prone to being liars, to talk big and fool along. They are likely to do things stealthily, be opportunistic, and become parasites who love to eat, drink, and have fun, as well as careerists and schemers. Without soul wealth, we would never know the meaning and value of life and the purposes of human life. We would not be able to establish the right worldview and outlook on life, and our values would be confused. Not having belief and faith would be like walking through the black of a starless night with low spiritual perception and living a muddled life like a walking corpse. However, those with only soul wealth but no material or spiritual wealth are also lacking. They are likely to be possessed by devils, dwell on spirits and deities, fortunes and disasters, and to play with concepts. They look ghost-like and are obsessed and maniacal. They tend to defile the names of the greatest creator, gods, Buddha, and celestial beings, to poison and bewitch people's hearts, to bring harm to society, and to deviate from humanity and from nature. Earth, water, air, and fire mutually reinforce and neutralize each other. Symmetric balance is blessing. If you ignore any single one of the three great treasures, you will not be able to obtain a perfect life and will walk on a deformed life. Road. The perfect life should be as such: to learn knowledge and skills lifelong, based on the experiences acquired through hard and honest work, getting a constant, proper amount of material wealth, but never taking the pursuit of material wealth as life's ultimate purpose, lest we become slaves to material wealth. To love nature, cherish family affection, friendship, love, to honor our good reputations, to comprehend the revelations of gods and Buddha, to listen to the teachings of saints and sages, to revere nature and the greatest creator, to constantly self-refine and self-improve, to never stop trekking and climbing to the highest realms of life and develop to perfection, to take the way of the greatest creator and pursue the three great treasures, giving neither up nor going to extremes with either, but controlling the balance, having peaceful hearts and minds. Just like the clear streams falling from the head source while cheering and jumping across valleys and between mountains, winding their way and rushing to the vast ocean while singing all the way. In the end, it is to get wishes fulfilled, debts paid off, connections unbound from the mortal world, and to become extraordinarily refined, to accumulate merits and virtues, to understand the mystery of life, to meet death with joy and excitement, and to ultimately reach the Elysium world. The spiritual life. Xiefeng. Life on earth can be divided into three categories: the mortal life, the wise life, and the spiritual life. Those who live for money, food, status, fame, and friendship are leading mortal lives. A full 80 to 85% of all people endure these types of lives. Those who live to pursue truth, spiritual wealth, honesty, kindness, beauty, love, and creating harmonious societies are leading wise lives. About 5 to 10% of people lead these types of lives. Those who live to revere the greatest creator, comprehend the mysteries of Tao, supreme enlightenment, and the highest state of life are leading spiritual lives. Only about 2 to 5% of people are gifted to lead these types of lives. Spiritual lives are extraordinary lives. This tiny percentage of people who lead spiritual lives have only the greatest creator in their hearts and minds. They never use their own wisdom or cleverness, but follow their hearts to live. They have no religions and do not put their hopes on any nations or special leaders. They have established unbreakable relationships with the greatest creator, and though they live on earth, their hearts are already transcending through time and space and traveling toward the kingdom of the greatest creator. They are retiring and unassuming, forgetting their own lives and wholeheartedly walking on the way of the greatest creator. Their hearts are full of peace and light. These people are the seeds of heaven and the essence of humanity. If you want to follow the spiritual path, the best road is to follow Jesus Christ's teachings. All teachings from Jesus Christ are telling people to walk on the way of the greatest creator, which is also the mission and sole purpose of Jesus Christ's coming to earth. Let us listen to the teachings of Jesus Christ in order to live this spiritual life. Jesus answered, "I tell you the truth. No one can enter the kingdom of God unless he is born of water and the Spirit. John 3 verse 5. Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." John 4 verse 3. Jesus declared, "Believe me, woman, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in spirit and in truth." John 4 verses 21 to 24. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6 verses 19 to 21. So do not worry, saying, "What shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear?" For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Matthew 6 verses 31 to 33. Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Matthew 7 13 to 14. Not everyone who says to me, "Lord, Lord," will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, "Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons and perform many miracles?" Then I will tell them plainly, "I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers." Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Matthew 7 21 to 27. And so I tell you, every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven men, but the blasphemy against the Spirit will not be forgiven. Anyone who speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven, but anyone who speaks against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven, either in this age or in the age to come. Matthew 12 31 to 32. Then some of the Pharisees and teachers of the law said to him, "Teacher, we want to see a miraculous sign from you." He answered, "A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a miraculous sign, but none will be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah." Matthew 12 8 to 39. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. Matthew 13 44 to 46. Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, it will be done just as you believed it would." Matthew 8:13. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. John 24 12 to 13. Anyone who loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And anyone who does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. John 10 37 to 39. Then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me." John 6:35-38. Stop grumbling among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, they will all be taught by God. Everyone who listens to the Father and learns from him comes to me. John 6:43-45. He went on to say, this is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled him. John 6:55. But what about you? He asked. Who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. John 16:15-17. He replied, because you have so little faith. I tell you the truth, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Matthew 7. He called a little child and had him stand among them. And he said, I tell you the truth, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18:3. Again, I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 come together in my name, there am I with them. Matthew 18:19-20. He said to another man, follow me. But the man replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Still another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. Jesus replied, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. Luke 9:59-62. Jesus answered, my teaching is not my own. It comes from him who sent me. If anyone chooses to do God's will, he will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. He who speaks on his own does so to gain honor for himself, but he who works for the honor of the one who sent him is a man of truth. There is nothing false about him. John 7:16-18. We shall try our best to enter through the narrow gate and live spiritual lives by following the teachings of Jesus Christ to walk on the way of the greatest Creator. No one's teachings are more comprehensive, profound, and authentic than those of Jesus Christ. Therefore, Jesus is the Christ, the door to eternal life. It is only by entering through this door, and we do not need any other methods to self-improve or self-refine, that we might arrive in the kingdom of the greatest Creator, the Elysium world. A life without regrets. Xiefeng, edited by Kair. There are countless paths of life, but few of them are without regrets. From imperial families to those in poverty, and from highbrow dignitaries with imperial notions to the masses who follow pop culture, few people can say when they leave the mortal world, I regret nothing in my life. Regrets are part of life. Remorse and distress interweave into life as people advance dauntlessly, trying to pursue an optimum life through one attempt after another. Philosophers, religionists, and politicians try to navigate through life with efforts to make them work without regrets, and although everyone begins to fight for their ideal life from the time they are born, almost all eventually leave the world with regrets and emotional scars. Which way leads to a life without regrets? In the early 1980s, I wrote a letter to a friend in which I listed 3 main pursuits in life: health, wealth, and freedom. However, I have found that even after having achieved these goals, I am still far away from that life without regrets. Today, I view having a life without regrets as one which realizes these 5 ideals. To connect one's own life with that of the source life. In this case, no matter how short one's life is in this mortal world and no matter what hardships or splendors they might traverse, their life will always remain connected with eternity, and a much more magnificent picture will manifest itself in the end. In this way, their life will have no regrets. To accept one's fate as it is. Whether one is a blade of grass or a peony, a robust eagle daunting through the sky or an agile swallow flying over fields and under eaves, whether they are born handsome and beautiful or plain and ordinary, whether they are highly gifted or severely challenged, and whether they are born into a humble house in a remote village or into the imperial palace in the capital, they can all appreciate the sun and moon, rivers and mountains, The rosy dawn and sunset's glow, the wind and frost, and the rain and snow. As long as they have hearts like this, they will feel grateful and not complain about the Tao of heaven being unfair. This too is the way to lead a life without regrets. To create joy in one's life through hard work, as busy as a bee working cheerfully. No matter how much spiritual or material wealth they create, no matter whether the fruits of their labor are enjoyed by many or few, they must keep working sincerely. They must not expect to be extremely rich and noble, or to earn great fame and recognition. As long as their blood, sweat, and tears drip into the soil along their natural paths, they can all be proud to say, "I have tried." In such a case, their life will have no regrets. To act in accordance with one's nature. It is a life's eternal error to imitate and emulate others. A lady from an illustrious family has her special charm as a daughter from a humble family also has her qualities. Urban city dwellers have their style while countrymen have their pure beauty. The rich have their problems, but the poor have their happiness. Delicacies have beautiful tastes and colors, but plain tea and simple food have rich nutrition. And extraordinary people have special gifts, but ordinary folks also have their advantages. To dream one's dreams and enjoy their pleasures, to take things as they are and act in accordance with one's nature, neither to force one's actions, follow fashion, nor compare themselves with others, to love what one loves and hate what they hate, and to treat oneself sincerely are all necessary if one is to enjoy a life without regrets. To do their best at everything they do. Whether it is to support their parents and rear their own children, or to help their siblings, friends, and neighbors, and seek public benefit, as long as one does their best, they will have no regrets. Our parents brought us up and their love is higher than the mountains and deeper than the sea. Every child wants their parents to enjoy their twilight years and to show their filial piety every day, but there are many things beyond our control and few can do absolutely as they wish. Parents understand this. And as long as they have tried their best, they will have no regrets. Children are our future and our ideal, and every parent wants their children to enjoy wonderful and successful lives. But wishes are wishes and reality is reality. Even one's fingers are of different lengths and weeds will grow in flower gardens. No one can expect perfection, but as long as they have done their best to rear their children, they should have no regrets regardless of what happens. There is nothing anyone can do when their children complain and resent them, but those who have done everything to the best of their ability will have no regrets. No one should ever carry more burdens than they can bear, nor force themselves to do the impossible. To act to one's capability and to do their best is to realize a life without regrets. We can certainly run on, but as there is no perfect life under heaven, why should we pursue one? All things created by the greatest creator are strewn in random order, but at distinct levels. As long as we obey the arrangements of the greatest creator, fulfill our obligations as human beings, and advance along the track of human nature, then whether our life shows favor or adversity or is bright or dark, ours will be a life without regrets. Escape from despair. Xiefeng, edited by Kair. Fear can hold you prisoner. Hope can set you free. The Shawshank Redemption. Each year, hundreds of thousands of people in despair commit suicide while each day, tens of millions in despair struggle to survive. It has been this way in the past, and it continues to be this way now, but it does not have to be this way in the future. Natural disasters do not make people despair, nor do hard material lives. Rather, people only despair when they have mental and spiritual trauma, and when they have the consciousness of seeing no better prospect. Mankind must rise from despair, the despair of life, the despair of mind, the despair of soul, and the despair of consciousness. People's desperation is not the intent of the greatest creator, or of gods, Buddha, the celestials, or of saints and sages. It is the product of people's mysterious consciousness, both the individual consciousness and the collective consciousness. Everyone must start from within themselves in order to escape from despair. To escape from the desperation of our minds is the key to escaping despair. Death may befall anyone at any time, and if we do not remove the threat of death from our consciousness, whether our life is brilliant or bleak, it will be a tragedy and an illusion in the end. How do we change life's tragedy into a comedy? How do we turn life's adversity into prosperity? How do we turn the bitter wine of death into the sweet nectar of life? The first reality about life is that death is not the end of life. People attain the quality of celestial beings through self-refinery and self-improvement and then go to live in the heaven of life. The thousand-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium Island continent. Heaven is not an illusory conception of religionists to anesthetize people's hearts. Rather, it is true reality. To clarify this point, we must understand that what had been a mystery of life is no longer such. To this end, not only have Jesus, Buddha, Seth, and even ESP already revealed the answer to us, but Life Genuine has also done the same, and with greater details. As long as you enter Life Genuine, you need to give up your inherent mindset and open your heart. I am sure that you can understand this holy yet simple mystery. Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, taught us, "If it be that ye can pass beyond the zones of heaven and earth, pass ye. Not without authority shall ye be able to pass." This coincides with Lao Tzu saying, "Heaven's net is broad and wide, with big meshes, yet letting nothing slip through." The way to avoid the nets above and snares below is to seek Tao. What is authority? What is Tao? In short, it is the greatest creator. So revering and worshiping the greatest creator is the greatest commandment of life. As we walk through the mist of death, we will see a new world. When we understand the real existence of heaven and when we are informed of the way to heaven, the bitters and sweets of life will turn into nectars, and we will be able to stride to the next station with neither adversities nor hardships, but rather with confidence, ease, and calmness. To escape from the despair of our souls, we must understand the non-material world, because if we do not, then our souls will remain dark. Not only will we not view the scenes of heaven, but we will not even see the glow of its dawn. We must carefully savor the words of Jesus and those of Sakyamuni. They never spoke falsehoods or told lies. Everything they spoke is true, and each sentence is a rung on the ladder to heaven. We must escape from our mental despair. We must practice unconventional thinking, because anything believed to be impossible through conventional thinking is possible through unconventional thinking and with fewer complications. We must understand the secrets of the Noble Eightfold Path of thinking and break from the shackles that traditional thoughts impose upon us. We must take efforts to see the distant views and the prospects, and we must trek unswervingly to the highest realm of life. To free ourselves from the despair of life, we must establish the correct worldview and outlook on life. To this point, we should learn from Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, from Mao Zedong, from Avalokitesvara, and from Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. We must release our personal interests and wear the shoes of the suffering people in our hearts. We must dedicate our lives to the people, society, and nature that nurtured us. To free ourselves from the desperation of life, we must take the great way, not the small trail. Becoming celebrities, heroes, officials, or simply wealthy is not the great way of life. To overthrow a regime, damage a harmonious society, suppress a religion or political party, form an armed social group, and so on would not welcome in the great way of life either. To earn a doctoral scholarship or professorship title, to cultivate special magic powers and arts, to practice witchcraft and sorcery, to read people's fortunes through the black art of divination, or to conjure gods and dispatch ghosts are not the great way of life. To embezzle and breach one's duties, to form cliques and factions, engage in malpractice for selfish ends, or to do anything by hook or crook does not support the great way of life. On the contrary, they are the evil way of life. What we do must be fair and square, but never done underhandedly. The Lord is everywhere, and nothing you do remains unknown forever. We must lead honorable and upright lives, not do things clandestinely, not learn tricks to conspire, and never say anything to curse or blaspheme your ancestors. The great way of life should be like this. Revere the greatest creator, revere nature, revere the gods and Buddha, honor your parents, respect the prophets, saints and masters, respect national leaders, be law-abiding, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Respect the old and love the young, be honest, industrious, kind, and do not take anything from others for nothing. Do not take advantages of others, the state, or nature, and try to be an ordinary, simple, and happy person. Life Genuine is the final course for mankind. Heaven has its Tao, Earth has its Tao, and people have their Tao. As long as we follow humane Tao, we will attain immortal Tao. As long as we enter Life Genuine to learn, understand, and comprehend with open minds, we will discard our despair, enter the Life Genuine era, and eventually enter the Elysium world of heaven. Deny despair, refuse despair, and abandon despair. Let us join hands, love and help each other, and march towards the field of hope. Life's wisdom. 谁错了? Who is wrong? Xiefeng, edited by Care. No one in the world is wrong. Everyone is right. If we think that everything in the world is right, that proves that we are right. If we think that everything in the world is wrong, that proves that we are wrong. No one is wrong. It is you who are wrong. Mice burrow. Are they wrong? The mice think they are right, but that mankind is wrong. Cats catch mice. Are they wrong? The cats are not wrong, because they believe that what they do is perfectly justified. Wolves eat meat. Sheep eat grass. Who is right and who is wrong? All are right. If we think it is not right, that means our understanding of things is not right. Some believe in Christianity, some believe in Buddhism, some believe in Marxism. Who is right and who is wrong? All are right. If we think that some beliefs are wrong, that proves our understanding has a problem. Some like money, some like beauty, some prefer to be alone, some like to fight. Who is right and who is wrong? All are right. If we think they are wrong, that only proves that we are wrong. Some are addicted to be the police. Some are fascinated to be thieves. Is anybody wrong? Nobody is wrong. Are lazy people wrong? Are hard-working people right? We are not the ones to say who is right and who is wrong. We can only say what is right for our very selves. Is the arrangement of heaven wrong? No. If you think heaven's arrangement is wrong, it is because we ourselves are wrong. It is only we who are wrong. We have no one and nothing to blame, not heaven, not the earth, not society, and not others. 10,000 dharmas are mere consciousness. Reality is created by mind. Whether the structure of the water molecule is beautiful or ugly depends completely on our attitude towards it. Are you sick? Do not resent society and others. It is your own fault. Are you in poverty? Do not resent society and others. It is your own fault. Do you have a troubled mind? Do not blame society and others. It is your own fault. Is the greatest creator dead? The greatest creator is not dead. It is you who are dead. Is Buddha not compassionate? Buddha is very compassionate. It is you who are not. In this view, wars, plagues, earthquakes, floods, and fires are not wrong. It is we who are wrong. In this view, burning and looting, embezzlement and theft, bribery and rampant mafia-style activities are not wrong. It is we who are wrong. The reality that we think is not reality, but rather a reflection of our subjective consciousness. It is our subjective consciousness that creates our reality in our minds. Quantum mechanics tells us that the existence form of the thing is closely related to the observer. That is to say, the thing being observed is the result of the observer. The action of the being observed depends on the observer's state of mind. For the same man, Xiefeng, some see him as the messenger of the greatest creator and the incarnation of gods and Buddha. Some see him as a witch and a madman, a fake preacher in the cloak of the greatest creator. Some see him as a friend and a second half. Some see him as a street shrew. Some see him as a saint. Some see him as an erotomaniac. After all, what he is depends on the cognitive way and the mentality of the observer. This further indicates that only when you have gods and Buddha in your mind can you see gods and Buddha, and only when you have devils in your mind can you see devils. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The devil is in the eye of the enemy. This is in line with the conclusions of the quantum mechanics. Tao learners are to change themselves rather than change others or society. If you do not change yourself, society and people will never change. If you change yourself, society and others will change accordingly. Similarly, if you want to enjoy a better environment, you must first have a beautiful soul. If you do not have a beautiful soul, you will never have a beautiful environment. This is one of the 8 secrets of life. If we want to live in the 1,000-year world, we must first acquire consciousnesses and souls that are fit for the thousand-year world. Once we get these consciousnesses and souls, it will be as easy as rolling a log for us to enter the thousand-year world. The difficult thing is not that we cannot go, it is that we cannot adjust our thinking because thinking has inertia. Laziness and unwillingness to engage in in-depth discussions and thinking are commonalities for people. Letting our thinking run according to convention is the easiest and simplest, but it has no future. Do you want to get rid of your immediate dilemma? You must first realize that you are wrong. The plight before your eyes is the objective reflection of your false consciousness. If your false consciousness remains unchanged, then your immediate plight can never be clear of it. Even if you escape from this predicament, the next predicaments will arrive unceasingly and in quick succession. It is only when you realize your mistake that you can find the right direction in which to go. It is only when you understand that the world is not wrong, that it is you who are wrong, that you can see the ultimate goal of life. And only when you know the ultimate goal of life, that your life can go to the higher level. Do you want to jump off a building and kill yourself? Jump. You can go to hell after the jump. Do you want to cultivate Tao and become immortal? Do it. You can go to heaven after the cultivation. Do you want to suffer? No problem. Just go on a wild goose chase and stick to your narrow mind and just think you are never wrong. Then you can expect suffering and torment. Do you want to be joyful and blessed? No problem. Just open your mind and engage in unconventional thinking. Just realize that you are wrong, and then you will have infinite joy and blessings. Did I say wrong? Who is wrong, you or I? I know I am wrong, but do not offer help unless asked for. From Life's Wisdom, A-Form Celestial. 80% of the effort spent on predicting and preparing for potential hazards are unnecessary and result in a waste of time, energy, and resources. Similarly, 90% of voluntary efforts to help others are also unnecessary, harmful, and contrary to the natural order. Have I got it backwards? Think about the Great Wall that was built. How much effort was expended on it? Maintaining a million-strong army, constructing countless warships and aircraft. How much of that was utilized? You've given numerous heartfelt warnings and advice to prevent your children from being deceived when they go out. How much of your profound insights have been put into practice? You've agonized and racked your brains over how to prevent your spouse from straying. How much of your efforts have been effective? What's the likelihood that the scenarios you meticulously plan for actually occur in reality? Everyone can reflect on their own experiences and conclude that 90% of the measures and methods taken beforehand to prevent something often end up being useless. Why do I emphasize don't help unless asked? Because I've found that 90% of the time, it's meddling unnecessarily, harming both others and oneself. Firstly, I have to ask, why do you want to help others? If they don't ask for your help, but you insist on helping, do you realize how much harm this can cause? It forcibly imposes emotional debt on others. When you help someone, they are expected to feel grateful, thus owing you an emotional debt. Favors are not debts, but in times of need, one might sell even their cooking pot. Whenever you face difficulties, others are obligated to repay this debt with all their might, even if it means selling their belongings or risking their lives. They must repay. It's better to repay in this lifetime. If they can't, they'll have to come back in the next life to repay you. Do you think this is not cruel? It forces others into economic debt. There was a married couple who, despite living modestly, were content and happy in their daily lives. They had a wealthy friend who, seeing their poor lifestyle, voluntarily lent them 30,000 yuan to teach them how to do business. From then on, this couple never experienced another peaceful day. In the end, not only did they fail to become wealthy, but they also almost lost all the 30,000 yuan borrowed from their friend. The husband eventually turned to a life of crime, and the wife disappeared after divorcing him. Consider a family of 6, with elderly members and young children, struggling to make ends meet. One day, the 75-year-old elder suddenly becomes unconscious and, after lying at home for 2 days with no improvement, seems beyond help. At this critical moment, a well-meaning person among their relatives and friends steps forward, lending them 10,000 yuan. He also calls the county hospital to send an ambulance to rush the elderly person to the hospital for treatment. Although the elderly person survives after being treated, they are left completely paralyzed. The 10,000 yuan borrowed is not only insufficient to cover the hospital treatment and hospitalization expenses, but also prompts them to borrow another 5,000 yuan from other relatives and friends. How will this family manage their lives from now on? Some people like to give gifts to relatives and friends. 90% of these gifts are often not urgently needed by the recipients, or sometimes they are things the recipients never wanted to use in the first place. By conventional standards, you might think you're giving something for free, whether it's useful or not, at least not causing any loss to the recipient, and that you should not reject something given for free. But in reality, the recipient ends up at a loss. The giver's well-intentioned gesture of care and help results in the recipient losing out. Refusing the gift might seem ungrateful. So, you accept it. At first, it seems like you're getting something for nothing, but in reality, it's accumulating debt. Both parties know exactly how much the gift is worth and how much debt they owe each other. When the time hasn't come, everything seems calm. But when the time comes, this debt must be repaid, converting the initially useless gift into a financial burden that must be matched or repaid in kind. It cuts off the path for others to repay debts through suffering. Not all suffering is necessarily a bad thing. Some suffering may be to help the person understand a certain truth, or it may be to allow the person to repay a debt. Everything happens for a reason. There is cause and effect. If you intervene and help someone without being asked, you may delay their path to liberation. Originally, it might have been an acute illness that could have been cured in 3 days, but because of your unsolicited help, it turned into a chronic illness that is difficult to cure even after 30 years. Disrupted others' plans. A father locked his son in a woodshed to save him, but a kind-hearted neighbor intervened and released the son. As a result, the son got involved in criminal activities and ended up in prison. A young girl with only primary school education moves to the city and starts working at a restaurant. With her quick learning and dexterity, she could easily pick up business skills, which would help her in the future to open her own restaurant after leaving her current job and getting married. However, there was a well-meaning person who, seeing the girl's beauty, felt that working in a restaurant was a waste of her talent. This person then helped her find a relatively easy and comfortable job. So, what happens next? Encourages vanity and complacency in people. Everyone encounters difficulties and faces impassable mountains of fire at times. When unable to solve them alone, seeking help from others is appropriate. However, some individuals, with strong vanity and self-esteem, always want to display grandiosity. Even after they are no longer a director, they show off as if they are still in that position. For such individuals, anyone who attempts to help them may inadvertently harm them, yet they will never recognize the value of humility and genuine character. Fostering laziness. Consider the animals in the zoo. They become accustomed to being fed by humans. What would their chances of survival be if they were returned to the wild? If someone doesn't ask for your help and you offer it voluntarily, they may become dependent. Initially, they could have exerted themselves during critical moments and discovered their own great potential. But once you step in to help, their potential may never get a chance to be unleashed. They will forever believe they are worthless, like the ugly duckling. Planting seeds of resentment in yourself. Voluntarily helping others usually happens when you are in a good mood, feeling empathetic, maintaining good relationships, or feeling compelled by circumstances. However, as time passes and your own situation changes, memories of those instances where you helped others will replay in your mind. You might meticulously recall each person you've assisted, how you helped them, and what you did for them. When you find yourself in a difficult or dangerous situation, you might hope that those you've helped in the past will step forward to assist you. If they do not step up voluntarily, you might feel resentment in your heart, thinking, "Humph, what ungrateful people," or "they must have no conscience," or "they're worse than animals for not repaying kindness." Aren't you planting resentment for yourself? Contradicting the natural order. The Tao governs birth, growth, and destruction, formation, existence, disintegration, and emptiness, as well as arising and declining. All follow the principles of natural law. Only those who understand the laws of nature can truly help others. Without understanding these principles, our well-intentioned acts might ironically lead to harm, and our good deeds might ironically result in unintended consequences. Just like the British soldier who rescued Hitler from death on the battlefield, His act of kindness was seen as an evil deed in the grand scheme of history and morality. Look at how brightly the flowers bloom in the fields. Look at how freely the birds fly in the sky. They don't need us to interfere or offer help unnecessarily. The more we intervene, the worse things may become. Have faith in the greatest creator. Trust in the natural order. Refrain from extending a helping hand where it's not needed. When we face difficulties, we must seek help. The road to Shu is hard, harder than climbing to the sky. Asking for help is difficult, harder than attempting extreme measures. But no matter how tough it is, it's essential to seek assistance when in trouble. By doing so, we not only understand life better ourselves, but also can timely lend a helping hand to others when they face adversity. Grateful for a drop of water received from others, one should repay with a gushing spring. Try to handle as much as possible on your own and believe in your unlimited potential. However, when necessary, bravely seek help from others, with the intention of repaying their kindness in the future. All rules have exceptions, especially when interacting with a life and death friend. In such critical situations, different considerations apply. Jumping out of the three realms and not within the five elements, one might even be willing to sacrifice their own life for another. In such moments, conventional sayings like, "Do not offer help unless asked for," hold little relevance. Be cautious when someone comes forward to offer excessive flattery and concern. When someone says, "I'm doing this for your own good," be cautious. When someone volunteers to help you, you should think, "Oh, what bad luck." Further discussion on "Do not offer help unless asked for." Form celestial. Born naturally, perish naturally. Wildflowers in the fields are nourished by sunlight and raindrops. Birds in the forests find their own food, and wild animals running on the African plains follow their own rules for reproduction. Humans, as one of the natural species created by the greatest creator, can also grow on their own. Everything operates within the Tao, the consciousness of the greatest creator, which provides arrangements for protection and punishment. From a microscopic perspective, it may seem chaotic, but from a macroscopic view, everything is orderly. It is this order that has allowed scientists to discover rules and create formulas that fit these rules. Without order, the sun would not rise from the east tomorrow. Life has its trajectory. Without it, rivers would overflow into the mountains and fields. Life follows the law of causality. Otherwise, everyone would be born into royal or wealthy families. In the kingdom of bees, there is a natural division of labor. Not all bees can become queen bees. If one ignores the process, even the most well-intentioned person can end up neglecting some aspects. As the saying goes, when heaven is about to confer a great responsibility on any man, it will exercise his mind with suffering, subject his sinews and bones to hard work, expose his body to hunger, put him to poverty, place obstacles in the paths of his deeds, so as to stimulate his mind, harden his nature, and improve wherever he is incompetent. If a well-intentioned person interferes in this process, it will inevitably disrupt it, thus leading to a situation where good intentions result in bad outcomes. Suppose there is an eagle chasing a rabbit. Would you save it or not? If you save the rabbit, what would happen to the eagle? In the eagle's nest, there are over a dozen eaglets waiting to be fed. If the eagle cannot catch the rabbit, those eaglets will starve. Compared to one rabbit, which is more important, the rabbit or the eaglets? In a certain place, packs of jackals are causing havoc to local creatures. Ordinary dogs are no match for wild wolves. To develop dogs capable of facing wild wolves, people fence in a litter of puppies. When the dogs become extremely hungry, they start to fight among themselves. Eventually, the last surviving dog becomes a formidable opponent to the wolves, who then find it difficult to be aggressive. If you show kindness and prevent the puppies from fighting each other, thus training them to be fierce and aggressive dogs, how will you deal with those wild wolves? A person who committed numerous wrongdoings in their previous life is now experiencing all sorts of hardships to repay past karmic debts. This is the compassionate nature of the heavenly law. If you constantly help them and prevent them from suffering, their debts will be difficult to settle, and they may continue to reincarnate in the human world, potentially accumulating boundless karmic debts again. Tell me, are you doing a good deed or a bad deed? A person hurried to the market to buy things, but got entangled by a gang of ruffians, unable to escape. This delay caused him to miss boarding a ship. Hours later, the ship capsized in a storm at sea, and all passengers aboard perished. If you, out of compassion, chased away the ruffians and then drove the person to catch the ship, what would be the outcome? When I speak of do not offer help unless asked for, I consider the flow of procedures. This adheres to the virtue of great benevolence in cultivation and practice. If one constantly displays their small virtues and disrupts the procedures, it contrasts with the principle of great benevolence. However, do not offer help unless asked for also implies that if someone does ask for help, one should do their utmost to assist, to the extent dictated by the current circumstances. If someone gets into a car accident and is trapped under the car, should you help or not? I think we should listen to the drive of our own hearts. If you hear their cry for help, then you should bravely rush to their rescue. If you didn't hear it, in this special situation, you have to decide for yourself. Why did he have an accident? When we condemn others for not helping in life-threatening situations, we should ask why. Can we ourselves always help when we see someone in danger? How many lives are lost every day? Have you saved any? And if you did save someone, what then? Can you solve all their troubles? Can you guarantee that saving them will lead to a happy and fulfilled life for them? For many people, survival is worse than death. Donating to aid African famine victims is a charitable act worthy of promotion. But why are there so many famine victims in Africa? Is it because of lack of sunlight? If you feed them today, what about tomorrow? If you feed them this year, what about next year? Giving them fishing tools would be better than giving them a fish. Some people say, even if people do not ask for help, I will still assist them. Sure, then go ahead and help. How many young people cannot afford to go to school? Please go and help them. How many elderly people are plagued by illness? Please go and help them. How many families are falling apart? Please go and help them. How many people are suffering from mental and emotional abuse? Please go and help them. How many people eat rougher meals, live in simpler conditions, and dress more humbly than you? Please go and help them. In this society, there are always more people who talk big than those who actually do good deeds. As long as each person refrains from doing wrong and causing trouble for others in society, help when asked for, and that would be a great thing. Please read the similar article, Do Not Offer Help Unless Asked For. Those who have constant faith will have constant actions. Xiefeng, Mencius said, only those who have constant possessions can have constant hearts. Those who lack constant possessions will lack constant hearts. From this, we can understand that only when the common people live and work in peace and contentment can society be peaceful and harmonious, and all industries can prosper and develop. However, can those who have constant possessions always abide by the law and refrain from wrongdoing? Will those who lack constant possessions inevitably break the law and engage in all sorts of misconduct? Not necessarily. The legal protection of private property rights is a universal value. Any act that deprives individuals of their lawful private property is a crime, regardless of the noble moral justifications. The sanctity of lawful private property rights is both natural and divine, a protection and respect for the people's livelihood and reproduction. It is the guarantee of the people's survival and prosperity. Enabling the multitude to possess constant property is like providing vast pastures for cattle and sheep. This is the way to nurture the people of the world. But let us not forget that constant possessions belong to the material realm. If a person's steadfastness depends solely on material possessions, their perspective and realm would be too narrow, and their spirit and consciousness would remain at an animalistic level, making it difficult for their life to ascend to heaven. In heaven, everyone has the right to use, but no one has the right to own. Everything is shared, and everyone owns nothing yet possesses everything. Did Jesus Christ have constant possessions? Did Siddhartha Gautama Buddha and the sage Laozi have constant possessions? Did many missionaries have constant possessions? Yet, they all had constancy of heart. Above the notion that those who have constant possessions have constancy of heart lies a higher level of spiritual and conscious state. Those who have constant faith have constant actions. For those with unwavering faith, regardless of whether they possess constant material wealth or not, no matter how difficult and tortuous the path, they will persevere steadfastly towards their predetermined direction and goals, that is, constant action. Those who possess constant possessions may not refrain from wrongdoing, but those who have constant faith will never transgress. For example, someone may own a small farm, signifying constant possessions, yet cannot guarantee that they won't use pesticides, fertilizers, or even growth hormones on their vegetables and fruits. But for those with constant faith, they won't, because they are acutely aware of the dreadful consequences of transgression. Of course, the constancy of faith depends on what one believes in. If one believes in money is almighty or money can make ghosts grind, then their lifelong constancy will be in the pursuit of wealth. However, regardless of what the faithful believe in, the realm and perspective of those who have constant faith have constant actions far surpasses the realm and perspective of those who have constant possessions have constancy of heart. A pig, once it has a pigsty, possesses constant possessions and constancy of heart. A swan, without a fixed home and without constant possessions, has constant faith. Therefore, the swan can freely soar between heaven and earth, migrate freely with the change of seasons, and fly wherever it wants to go. The thinking style and approach to action in spiritual thinking. Xiefeng. We are already aware of the ladder of thinking in life: material thinking, image thinking, associative thinking, elusive thinking, visualized thinking, taiji thinking, non-form thinking, and holographic thinking. So why do we introduce rational thinking and spiritual thinking? Material thinking, image thinking, associative thinking, and elusive thinking all fall under rational thinking, which is characteristic of human thinking, while visualized thinking, taiji thinking, non-form thinking, and holographic thinking belong to celestial thinking. In other words, rational thinking and spiritual thinking serve as the boundary between human and celestial thinking. If your thinking is rational, do not doubt it. You are undoubtedly human. If, however, you contemplate and handle everything from the perspectives of visualization, taiji, non-form, and holography, without a doubt, you have transcended the ordinary and become celestial. Put simply, if our approach to problem-solving starts from the perspectives of materialism, imagery, association, and illusion, focusing on resolving the issues of survival such as food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and addressing life's inevitable challenges like aging, illness, and death, as well as securing respect, dignity, and a good reputation, and even aspiring to be admired or worshipped, then that is rational thinking, the thinking of humans. Spiritual thinking disregards these factors. Spiritual thinkers primarily consider whether their approach to handling affairs aligns with the will of the Supreme Life, the Creator, and whether it is consistent with their ultimate goal. In other words, spiritual thinkers make the will of the greatest Creator their own desire and the principles of Tao their guiding rules for action, without considering the benefits to themselves. They ponder whether their actions would please the greatest Creator. For instance, if the Holy Spirit tells you to live in the desert, a spiritual thinker will joyfully head to the desert without hesitation, thinking, "Oh, this is a revelation from the Holy Spirit. I believe in the Holy Spirit, so I should go live in the desert." It's that simple, direct, and straightforward. However, a rational thinker would never think or act in this manner. A rational thinker would ask, "There's no water in the desert, wouldn't people die of thirst? What if there's a sandstorm that buries the house? Live in the desert? Are you insane?" Similarly, if the Holy Spirit tells you to go to Canada, a rational thinker will first check how to get a visa. After finding out that applicants need a bank deposit and monthly bank transactions, and realizing they have neither, they would just forget it. "I don't meet the requirements." But a spiritual thinker wouldn't bother checking the requirements or listening to others' advice. They would immediately start the application process. At this point, you might wonder what the Holy Spirit is and how to know if it's a revelation from the Holy Spirit. Let me explain. The Holy Spirit is not a person. It's the voice within us or the greatest driving force we feel in our hearts. This driving force must bring us joy and excitement, not pressure or fear. You might think that spiritual thinkers have simplistic minds. Let me tell you, the minds of spiritual thinkers are infinitely more complex than those of rational thinkers. Spiritual thinkers belong to a higher dimensional thinking, and rational thinkers cannot comprehend the complexity of spiritual thinkers' minds. This can be demonstrated in three ways. Firstly, spiritual thinkers grasp the macroscopic, while rational thinkers grasp the microscopic. For instance, when seeking employment, spiritual thinkers prioritize whether the job brings them joy and happiness, whereas rational thinkers focus on aspects such as salary, working conditions, and prospects. Why is that? Because spiritual thinkers consider the direction of their lives and whether they can ultimately reach heaven. They are unwilling to do anything that conflicts with their destination. On the other hand, rational thinkers consider whether the job can meet their current life needs and don't consider whether their current actions will affect their ultimate goal. From this perspective, spiritual thinkers consider how to live, while rational thinkers consider how to survive. Secondly, spiritual thinkers consider life, while rational thinkers consider human life. To consider life, one must understand the principles and mysteries of life and its relationship with time and space. To consider human life, one only needs to learn the accumulated knowledge and experience of humanity and understand the operating rules of human society. Thirdly, spiritual thinkers maximize simplicity in handling complexity, while rational thinkers always complicate simplicity. For example, when building a community, those who participated in the construction of our third and fourth branches can recall that the layout and environment of the two communities were beautiful, right? If it were rational thinkers, they would gather everyone to discuss how to lay out and beautify the environment, insisting on drawing plans first, considering the selection of materials and the arrangement of personnel, and so on. However, in the construction of the two branches, there were no such discussions. I just imagined the layout and environment based on the terrain and then told everyone what to do. When everyone worked together, they didn't even know what the final community would look like. Yet, due to excellent cooperation, we completed two beautiful communities in just 2 years. It's worth emphasizing that the mind of someone who simplifies complex issues is significantly more insightful and considers a broader range of factors compared to someone who complicates straightforward matters. It's not even on the same level. Don't believe it? Why not attempt to simplify your own life and observe the outcomes? If you think that spiritual thinkers handle things superficially while rational thinkers are meticulous, that's a misunderstanding. For example, when building a house in a certain location, a spiritual thinker might say, just build a housey on high ground using wood and glass. It'll be good if it can last for 2 or 3 years. This would be hard for a rational thinker to accept. At the very least, they would consider the stability of the house and ensure it stands for at least 30 years, right? On the surface, the rational thinker's consideration seems entirely correct. But the crucial point is, the spiritual thinker considers that there will be a major earthquake in the location where the house is built 2 years later. Even the sturdiest house would collapse. Therefore, they suggest just doing it casually. There's no need to go to great lengths and waste financial, material, and human resources. This is something a rational thinker would never think of. So, what about life? Isn't it like building a house in an earthquake zone? Is it necessary to rack our brains and be so serious? My reply to the 4 questions raised by the chairman of the International Federation of Philosophical Societies, CFIng, Professor Dermot Moran, chairman of the International Federation of Philosophical Societies, raised the following 4 questions at the opening ceremony of the 24th World Congress of Philosophy held in Beijing on August 13, 2018. Is the relationship between man and society one or many? What is the future of mankind? In the face of uncertain technological innovations such as AI, where are we heading to? Are we facing the problem with a critical eye, and are we seeking verification of this? Is learning to be human for oneself or for others? My reply is as follows. The relationship between man and society is neither one nor many, but a combination. Look at the ant colony and the bee colony from a human perspective. The relationship between each ant and the colony is the relationship between the individual and the whole, the relationship between the cell and the body. If the whole disappears, the individual cannot survive. If the body perishes, the cells die. And without the individual, there is no whole. Without cells, there is no body. So the relationship between an ant and an ant colony is a combination. When looking at human society from a higher level of life than that of human beings, in fact, the relationship between individuals and society is not fundamentally different from the relationship between an ant and an ant colony. Even with wolves and lions, this rule also applies. If there are only 3 people on this earth, then these three people will constitute a society, and a single person can only have a chance to survive if they combine with the society. Otherwise, they will inevitably become extinct. The future of mankind lies in the Xiefeng-style communist society. Otherwise, mankind is bound to perish. The path of American civilization will